Just fantasy baseball. What's going on? I'm your host, Colby Olson, joined as always by Clay Snowden. Last episode, we broke down our favorite pitchers on the board from ADP 100 to 250. Today, we're going to be breaking down and going deep into the pitching ranks here, Clay. We're going deep beyond ADP 250, and some of these guys that we're going to give out today are, even going past ADP 400, but we think they have some really good value. So stick around, listen. We're going to give you our deep cut pitchers for fantasy baseball in 2023. Really excited about this group. But first, we're going to spend about the first 10 minutes of today's episode talking about the most important thing on everybody's mind, Aaron Rodgers and him going to the Jets.
Man, I could not care less about Aaron Rodgers and his theatrics. But back to the real thing on our mind, baseball. I want everyone to remember these names are not sure things. We're talking about 250 plus ADP. We understand some people are in super deep leagues, and we respect that. So we want to throw out some names that are really off the wall, but we will put some reasoning and backing into each one of these names to make us not sound as crazy as we may sound at first.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Whether you're in a deep league or even if you're in an 8-man or a 10-man league and you might not be drafting some of these guys, stick around and listen because some of these names are guys that, coming once you're a month or two into the season might be really, really sharp waiver wire ads. So maybe if you're not drafting them yet, just keep them on your waiver wire. Make sure you know who these guys are because some of these guys are actually, rookies that haven't even debuted yet. Some of them are second-year guys that are just kind of getting their second chance at the big leagues. And some are still kind of without a set role in the rotation. So it's a lot of question marks for a lot of these guys, but the talent is very clear for how these guys will perform in 2023. We think so, at least. We can't tell the future completely, but I don't know, Clay. I think they are sure things.
More likely than not.
All right, let me start. I'm going to start with Hayden Wesneski from the Chicago Cubs. It's a guy that I've talked about a lot this offseason. I went on the Just Baseball show and gave my top picks for 2023 for pitchers, and Wesneski is my favorite sleeper. I talked about him in regards to Christian Javier because he does have that similar, kind of role right now where he is not set for the rotation yet, but he came up at the end of last year, threw 33 innings at the end of last year, had a 2.18 ERA, a 2.18 expected ERA, and a 3.2 FIP. He struck out 25% of batters, only walked 5% of batters. This is a guy that gets a ton of ground balls, attacks hitters with mostly slider, a guy that throws his slider the most of any pitch he throws. Then he has a really nasty four-seam fastball that he can command up in the zone. He pairs that with a sinker that gets a ton of ground balls, mixes in a curveball and a cutter and a changeup that he's developed. And this is also one of Aram Layton's favorite players and one of his favorite Cubs prospects. You can go read his write-up on justbaseball.com. He outlined his favorite Cubs prospects coming to this year, and Wesneski is one of those. But beyond what he did the big leagues last year, Wesneski performed, really, really well in the minor leagues. Although the numbers don't necessarily show it from an ERA standpoint, I don't think it matters because he struck out a ton of batters, didn't walk guys, got enough ground balls. And then he only got better when he came up to the big leagues. He has a full pitch mix. And what I'm really excited about, Clay, is that this Cubs rotation is actually pretty wide open for Wesneski to get a really good shot. You have Drew Smyly, who's going to be, returning to this Cubs rotation. And I think he's deserving of a spot, but who really isn't deserving of a spot anymore? And Kyle Hendricks last year was abysmal. He was abysmal in 2021. He had a 4.77 ERA in 2021. This past year, he had a 4.8 ERA. At what point do the Cubs just, give it a rest? Why is Kyle Hendricks still getting innings? This is a team that just signed Dansby Swanson and, Cody Bellinger and has a lot of promise this year. They should not be wasting innings on a guy that's not going to perform well. And that's why Wesneski's going to get into games and perform well.
Yeah, and I like what they did. There's a few people battling for these rotation spots that are younger. I know Samson's in there as well, and Samson does not look that great in spring training, though. And I love what you've said on it, and you've pretty much covered him. But one thing I wanted to mention too is the Cubs did something I thought was smart, and that was that they brought in and now have two veteran catchers in Tucker Barnhart and Yan Gomes to work with the younger pitchers. And that can be overshadowed. I think that is incredibly important. Too often we see teams not surround their pitching staff with, solid catchers who are going to help them develop. And these two, you know, catchers should really help the Cubs rotation.
Yeah, man, I agree. I think that's it's an underrated element to this entire equation. But yeah, feel free to dig into your first guy or the guy that who are you most excited about on your list?
One guy that I guess I'll go ahead and talk about is David Peterson with the Mets, right? And Quintana's injured for them, and they kind of have a rotation spot available. And now they have tons of guys who could fill it. And I think Peterson may be that guy. He's fantastic movement on his pitches. He's a guy that has had that prospect upside, not like a super, super high prospect or anything. He's still young, still learning how to pitch at the MLB level. And he has 4 pitches that he uses in regularity with the fastball, slider, changeup, and sinker, and a 3.83 ERA last year, 3.64 FIP, and 10 Ks per 9. He does walk some batters. Overall, I think that this is a good pitcher. He will not be excellent, but I think that he's going to provide you enough value and having a decent enough ERA, but also help you by just being on a good team, right? And if you're looking to just pick up some cheap wins, he could be your guy.
Yeah, I think that's important. I mean, I don't even know if you have to really justify, like, he's not going to be an ace for your team. Like, he's just going to put up some good innings. And I think that's the advertisement for a lot of these guys. But David Peterson, well, one, Clay, is a super deep cut to start this list off. So I absolutely love that. But, he has performed really well in short spurts. The problem for him has been walking too many batters. The command overall is an issue for him, but he's shown that he can strike guys out with regularity. He had a 28% strikeout rate last year. But yeah, I mean, I think if he can get a rotation spot, which could absolutely be the case in a Mets rotation that has a lot of injury concerns, like Carlos Carrasco, for example, is going to be dealing with injuries. Like, we talked about Scherzer and Verlander about how they're invincible, but, maybe they're not. You never know. I think there's going to be opportunities for David Peterson to get starts. This also might be a guy that we'll be targeting for spot starts as well.
Yeah.
Because he probably won't be owned in a ton of leagues.
Yeah,
but I like this one, Clay.
And that's the thing with a lot of these guys. As you mentioned in the beginning, they can either be deep league players, or if you're in a shallow league, these are more or less spot start type people to have on a watch list and keep an eye on.
So the next guy I'm going to talk about is Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez was a guy that I was extremely excited about coming into last season because in 2021, I mean, he was pretty dazzling. 1.36 ERA, a 2.6 expected ERA, and a FIP below 3 as well. He had a 60% ground ball rate in 2021. Backed that up last year with a 55% ground ball rate. I mean, like, this is a guy that, basically just throws fastballs at you. goes at you with sinker, changeup, and four seam. And like, that's what he throws. Like, he's really not going to come at you with anything that's breaking. It's an amazing pitch mix, and it's amazing that he's able to succeed with this pitch mix. The problem for Suarez last year was that his four-seam fastball just did not perform well and was beaten up. But I think there was an element to his season last year that felt unlucky, although he did outperform all of his expected metrics, but he didn't get the strikeouts that he did in 2021. His strikeout rate dropped from 25.6% in 2021 to 19.5% last year. So I'm expecting the strikeout stuff to return a bit this year. But for a guy that, Ranger Suarez was a guy we were talking about last year as like, legitimately a top 50 pitcher in baseball. And now he's, his draft stock has plummeted. So in terms of, one, I think he's a high ceiling guy because he doesn't give up a lot of hard contact, gets a lot of ground balls. He can pitch deep into games. He does pitch for a good team. But he does have a lot of upside as well. We've seen how well he can perform, and 2021 is the perfect example of that, right? So this is a guy that, let me see where he's being taken here. ADP 323. I took him in a draft recently above that. I took him at 264. I think you can get him, lower than 264, but I'm high on Ranger Suarez, and I'm willing to reach on him because I believe in the resurgence here. And I think you're getting him at a really affordable price.
2021 wasn't the largest sample size for him. He had cups of coffee in the league and kind of bounced around, gotten there in 2021 and started and pitched in 100 innings, and he did pitch well. I'm always a little bit hesitant with those type of guys, just because I'm somebody who's a big believer in like larger sample size. So what we saw from him in 2022 was not concerning to me, though. It wasn't like, oh, he can't be that guy that we saw in 2021. I didn't feel that way. I felt, okay, he wasn't as effective, but what we had seen was still a good floor, still a good baseline for him. And like you mentioned, Colby, I do think that he can return closer to what he was in 2021. And what I love is just ground ball pitchers. I love that profile, especially later in the draft, because they're not going to typically have many blow-up starts. They're not going to typically pitch well, give up that 3-run home run that kind of kills you, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be mostly safe. And if you can have guys who you can kind of project exactly what they'll be on your roster at this point in the draft, that's great. You can chase other guys who are maybe more volatile, but you need some stable people on your roster. And I think Suarez can be that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think stability is key here, especially this deep in the draft. You're just looking for guys that are going to give you valuable innings at a good floor, and I think Suarez is that.
We'll go ahead and jump to my next guy, Roansy Contreras for the Pirates. 12 Ks per 9 in AAA last year. He did come up and pitch for Pittsburgh a bit. 3.79 ERA last year with a 4.38 FIP. What do we know about this guy? He has an electric fastball, right? The issue with the fastball was last year it got hit a little bit in the MLB. And, I don't think that he's a pitcher that I say is going to be like an ace. I don't see that. I know that some people feel that way, especially Pirates fans. And it's a good fastball, it has good movement and, it sits 95 and he has a curveball and slider to work off of it. My thing with him is he needs to work off of his fastball in a more productive way. And that's one of those deals, he's 23 years old. So often we see with these pitchers who come up, like we've mentioned before, it takes them some time to learn how to work off of their pitches, complement each other. And right now, the Pirates aren't the best team. This is a player that I think does have upside in this group. One of the higher upsides, maybe. The only thing I'm worried about with fantasy is like, all right, is how big are the growing pains going to be? And can he get any wins for your team?
I mean, Roansy Contreras has an insane amount of upside, and I think a lot of people are chasing that upside. You bring up some good points, Clay. He got peppered last year at the big league level. He came up and gave up a 46% hard hit rate against. That is near the top of the league. You mentioned the fastball, which had a 404 xWOBA last year. But beyond that, like there were some really impressive things that he showed. The slider is a wipeout pitch at 84 miles an hour. It had a 42% whiff rate last year. Hitters hit just 163 against the slider. So I think you do bring up a valuable point there is that, you can't be a pitcher can't be throwing his fastball 48% of the time and be, hitters be hitting 276 with a 541 slugging percentage off of that pitch. Like that's just not a productive way to pitch. But I think the other context here is that, Contreras was dealing with some like just minor injuries and was kind of up and down between the minors and the majors and the injured list. And he never really got to settle in last year, which I think really did hurt him. He just couldn't get in that flow and that routine that is so important for pitchers. So if you're looking, the advertisement I would give for Roansy Contreras this year is, do you want the highest upside possible? Roansy Contreras is that at ADP 300, right? You look where he's going around guys like Ross Stripling, Kenta Maeda, Martin Perez. Like Roansy Contreras realistically has a higher ceiling than any of those guys. So I think, if you really want to swing for the fences, Contreras is the guy there. Cool. All right. I'm going to move on to a guy that I find it hard not to fall back in love with him, but I almost have to pinch myself a little bit sometimes. Noah Syndergaard made his return last year after being away from baseball and being injured since basically 2019. He threw 2 innings in 2021. I don't think that really counts for anything. He returned and pitched for the Angels and then the Phillies for a bit. And it was kind of a disappointing season for Noah Syndergaard because not that he didn't pitch well, like he pitched admirably, right? He had a 3.83 ERA in 80 innings with the Angels, then moved over to the Phillies, had a 4.12 ERA. It was not a bad season for Noah Syndergaard, but he wasn't striking batters out. His K per 9 was 6 per 9. He wasn't walking anybody. He was getting plenty of weak contact off of him. His hard hit rate against was actually 79th percentile. So the contact he was giving up was not hard, but the strikeouts were not there for Syndergaard. What really has me back on the Syndergaard train is, one, last year was his first season post injury, so he was still kind of building up to, I think, where he was pre-injury. I don't think he'll ever get back to where he was pre-injury, but now he goes to the Dodgers. And we've seen the case for pitchers that go to the Dodgers and completely turn their careers around. I mean, just look at Tyler Anderson, for example, last year, right? I think that's the perfect example for a guy that, doesn't really throw that hard, but made some changes to his pitch mix, made some changes to the way he threw his slider. And what do you know? Tyler Anderson goes and gets a big old bag from the Angels. And I think Syndergaard this is like the perfect place for him to end up. The only concern I would have for drafting Noah Syndergaard is actually not even health related. And it's honestly not even performance related, because I think he will perform fine. I don't think the strikeouts will be back to where it was when he was striking out, 9 or 10 per 9. But I think the hardest thing for drafting Noah Syndergaard is, where is he going to be taken in your draft? Because right now, sometimes he can be taken 100 slots above his ADP. His ADP right now is at 286. I was in a draft a couple weeks ago. He went 182. So like it really is one of those guys where if he's in the right spot, like if you can get him at around 250 to 275, I say take a shot on him, because he's going to put up productive innings. And I think the upside here is pretty tremendous on a Dodgers team.
Yeah, I agree with what you say about where you can select him. I'm not going to reach for him. If someone else in my league wants to do that, that's fine. He's going to be on a good team. Like you mentioned, the Dodgers have been able to kind of rework some vets, and he has that going in his favor. But I was talked into drafting him last year, and it didn't work out for me. So maybe I just have a sour taste in my mouth, but I need more. I need more from him than what I saw last year. Hopefully he can do that for his own sake, but for me, I'm staying away.
Yeah, I mean, like the last thing I'll say before I let you get to your next thing, Clay, is, if there's one team that would be able to, or if there's one team where they find a player and they sign a player, there's a reason behind that, right? They know what they're working with Noah Syndergaard, and they probably have some idea of how they can make him better. So that's just kind of like, it's kind of a blind, you kind of got to go in blind when you're drafting him a little bit, because you don't know what that change is going to be yet. And like, it's very hard to see that in even just the limited spring training innings. But yeah, I'm excited to see, the new Syndergaard. But yeah, feel free to go
So
into
the
your
next
next
person
guy.
on my list, the next guy on my list is a super deep cut, and that's Spencer Turnbull with the Detroit Tigers. coming back off of injury, and a big hoss of a guy. And he did throw a no-hitter in 2021 and was pitching really well through 9 starts. 2.88 ERA, 3.01 expected ERA with a 2.95 FIP. Now, the thing about him is that's only 9 starts, right? It's only about 50 innings that he pitched before he was shut down with injury and missed all of last year. So why would I like him? In that small sample size, batters hit 198 off his fastball and 189 off the slider. We all know about the Comerica effect, right? They did change the walls a little bit. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. Spencer Turnbull should be able to get plenty of innings with Casey Mize out, Tarek Skubal out. A lot of unknowns in that rotation. Here's a guy who I can at least start at home, at the very least, and hope for the best. He had a 57% ground ball rate. I think I could get Spencer Turnbull in a super deep league and just have him be a pretty decent pitcher for me. Of course, the wins won't help much, but I don't see.
Who cares? Who
Yeah,
cares?
I could see him putting up a decent ERA.
Dude, I think everybody forgot about Spencer Turnbull, as did I. Like, you said this name on the show live, and I am honestly like, this is news to me because I forgot about Spencer Turnbull, right? Because he was so excellent in 2021, but it was only 9 starts before. Did he get Tommy John or
Yep.
what was the injury? Was it Tommy John? So like this is a guy that's pretty much escaped everyone's mind. This is a guy that you can get with like your last pick, and everybody's gonna go, "Oh my god, I remember Spencer Turnbull. He pitched a no hitter." What's so fascinating about Spencer Turnbull and which has me excited is I haven't seen him pitch this spring, so I don't know if you have, Clay, like where his stuff is at. But if the stuff is similar to where it was in 2021, nobody could hit his fastball or his sinker. He got 57% ground ball rate, which is very, very high. Like that's got to be in the top 10 to 15 if he can replicate that. And the slider was nasty in 2021, a 37% whiff rate off that pitch. It was a complete pitch mix for him, with the four-seam sinker slider mix. And he did mix in a curveball and a changeup as well. Man, this
And
is intriguing. I'm kind of
he's
in.
not a guy. He's not this guy who was just absolutely trash and then had 9 good starts. He got slightly better each year and working towards 2021. And then in that small sample size, looked really good. Really good. He's now coming off of an injury. We never really know what that means. But this is a guy who is going to get a ton of starts if healthy. He's not going to be bouncing in and out of a rotation or anything like that. And like I just see it. Okay, Pitcher's Park. Last time we saw him pitch, he was excellent. Everyone's forgot about him. This is a great value in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, you might not even have to draft him. Like, just see where he's at in the first 2 weeks of the season and then scoop him. This is, yeah, Clay, I love it. This is a great, great guy to bring up because genuinely, I think everybody forgot about him. All right, I'm gonna bring up one of my favorite pitchers, and you can tell me I'm a homer and that I only like Red Sox players, which maybe you're right. Maybe I just have a soft spot for Red Sox players. But Tanner Houck has a chance to have at least a decent part of this rotation this year. There's a lot of question marks in this Red Sox rotation. Like, what does James Paxton's health look like? What does Garrett Whitlock's health look like? Chris Sale, I believe, is back healthy, and I think he will be healthy this year. Corey Kluber looks pretty locked into this rotation as well. But
Opening day starter.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Everybody can hate on it all they want, but Kluber can still get it done. I think I brought it up this morning. I don't think I sent this to you, Clay, but Corey Kluber last year had a lower FIP than Julio Urias, Tristan McKenzie, and Joe Musgrove. So, if you're going to come shitting on Corey Kluber, you better come knowing the facts because he still is getting it done at age 35. All right. Let's let the man live a little bit here. But back to Tanner Houck, because I just really want Tanner Houck to get a chance to start and be a productive part of this rotation, because in 2021, he made 13 starts and was really impressive in those starts. In 2021, a 3.52 ERA. He had a 2.58 FIP. He struck out a whopping 30% of batters. And then last year was not as good of a year for Tanner Houck. He took a step back, but I think the reason for that is the amount of confusion that Tanner Houck had to deal with last year in that bullpen, right? He started the year and they were like, "Oh yeah, you're gunning for a rotation spot." Then he starts the year and it's like, "All right, well now you might be a high leverage guy, but now we're going to switch you over to being a 2 to 3 inning, kind of gap reliever. Oh, you might have a spot start here and there." Like, he really couldn't get into that routine, as I talked about with Roansy Contreras. Like, he was just all over the place with where he was pitching and really what his goals and objectives were for coming into a game and executing on that. It's like one day I'm pitching 1 inning, one day I'm pitching 3.5 innings. Like, am I going 6 innings? What is the deal here? And there still is some of that concern coming into 2023. But with, Garrett Whitlock and James Paxton's injuries, I think Tanner Houck actually has a good chance to be in this rotation on opening day. And if he can perform out of the gate, you could be getting a really, really good arm here, with a ton of upside entering his age 27 season. So I'm really excited about Tanner Houck. This is, the upside here is crazy, and a guy that you should immediately put on your watch list, if not draft him in a deeper league.
Yeah, and I agree with what you've said so far. It's 2021 showed us what he can be and showed us some flashes. 2022, he was using that Swiss Army roll, knife roll, and never really got a chance to find his footing, I think, just because it's just an unfair expectation to put somebody in a role like that. Now, of course, he's going to do what's best for the team. Coming into 2023, he's going to have a defined role, and he has time to focus on that now. I like the stuff. There's room for improvement. And, like you said, it's kind of coin flips at this point in the draft with a lot of these guys. And this seems like a better than 50-50 chance to me.
Yeah, I mean, he had a 3.15 ERA last year, a 51% ground ball rate. He doesn't give up home runs. The slider is unhittable. Like, there's so much to dream on here, and if he can just stick in the rotation, you're going to be getting so much value on top of this pick. So yeah, that's kind of the sell for me.
So I believe I have 2 left and you have 1 left. Is that
Yep.
correct? So I'm going to actually do 2 in a row here because one is very short, and I'll expand on the other one, and we will let you finish. So the short one here is Alex Wood. And I think it's pretty straightforward. Like, Alex Wood has been up and down throughout his career with a ton of injuries. He's the type of guy who you can put out there and expect 3.5 to 4 ERA. He flashed in 2021, wasn't as good in 2022. The question just comes down to injuries with him. I think he's always a late round guy that a lot of people already know about and already choose to select, just to have some type of a baseline vet to get you through. Colby, any quick thoughts on Alex Wood?
Yeah, my only quick thought on Alex Wood is that his teammate as well is an interesting option for me, Ross Stripling, moving
Yep.
over from the
I
Blue
looked at that name
Jays.
as well.
I think he's a very serviceable option last year for the Blue Jays. 3.01 ERA, a 3.11 FIP. Didn't give up a lot of hard contact. Doesn't get the K numbers that you would love to see, 20% K rate last year, but he had 3.7% walk rate last year, which led to a 1.02 whip. So Stripling's an interesting case moving to a pitcher-friendly ballpark. I really don't hate any pitcher that's pitching in Oracle Park. Like, a lot of these
Yeah.
Giants arms, I think, have a ton of value, just because they're pitching in a pitcher-friendly park, and I do like the stuff that they have already. So yeah, Alex Wood, Ross Stripling, count me in.
So my last one is Ken Waldachek, who's with the Oakland Athletics, the currently Oakland Athletics. Who knows if they'll stay there or not, but cup of coffee last year with Oakland after coming over from New York. 34 innings, had a 4.93 ERA with a 4.30 FIP. Okay. Throughout the minors, he was pretty solid. ERA under 4 in AAA across 2 different organizations last year. He had a 10 Ks per 9, then a 13 Ks per 9. Again, not the biggest sample size with either, but that's in AAA. Walks have been an issue with him. But what I love is just the movement that he has on pitches. He can really has room to grow just because he has that ability already. Now, of course, what do we like here is there's going to be opportunities for him to pitch. Believe it or not, Oakland's rotation is not stacked in a way of talent, but stacked in a way of guys who are going to get opportunities, and then it just needs to sort itself out. He likely has the most upside of this group. So I would imagine him getting into that rotation, staying in that rotation. The other thing that I love about it is just the fact that he's pitching in Oakland, right? Like that alone brings value to me in a late round draft pick. So we're talking about a guy with upside, a guy pitching in Oakland, and somebody who has shown the ability to strike out batters and has great movement on his pitches. Sign me up.
Yeah, I agree, Clay. Sign me up. I was in last year. This is one of Arm's favorite prospects from last year. I don't think there's really much sell beyond that, but I think he can really take a step forward this year, getting his first full season, and also without that much pressure. Like pitching in Oakland, you're not gonna have Yankee fans booing you if you don't pitch well one start. So I think that yeah, Waldichuk is set up for a good season here. Another name I kind of like on the A's is JP Sears as well. So that's a really, really deep cut. Not somebody that I'm targeting in drafts or anything,
And
but just wanted to.
he might end up in the bullpen. If you want to know a really deep cut from the A's, Adam Oller, who's like not a good pitcher, right?
You're obsessed with Adam Oller. You
He's
love Adam
changed
Oller.
something this spring, man. I watched two of his starts. It's honestly incredible how good he's looked at times. Like 7 Ks through 4 innings the other day. Like that's just someone to keep an eye on because like he's changed something and now he may not be terrible and he may just be bad.
All right. Shall I end this episode with another rookie? Well, I guess, yeah,
Absolutely.
Wallachuk's still technically a rookie,
Yeah.
35 innings last year. I'm going to end the episode with a true rookie, and I'm really not even going to give any of my own analysis because I'm not going to pretend that I am the prospect expert here at Just Baseball. I'm just going to read straight from Arm's most recent breakdown um, of the Arizona Diamondbacks top prospects. Brandon Pfaadt comes in at number 5 on that list for him. But don't get it twisted that Brandon Pfaadt is number 5 on the Diamondbacks prospect list as if he's not amazing. He's a top 100 prospect, and honestly a top 50 prospect. He has some crazy stuff. But Arnhem breaks him down and says this about him. Though he may not have ace upside, Fott is as much of a virtual lock to stick as a starter as there is in this system, and continues to get better each time I watch him pitch. He has plus command of 4 pitches that ticked up in 2022, and it makes sense that Fott kicked things in another gear this year. So there's a ton of upside here. He commands 4 pitches well. He gets whiffs with his slider. He doesn't walk a lot of batters. He walked less than 5% of batters last season. He is susceptible to giving up home runs. That's the only thing that is working against him. But last year he did pitch in some of the more hitter-friendly environments in the minor leagues. That's per arm. He is a fly ball pitcher, which does lead him to be susceptible to the long ball. But yeah, man, I think this is one of the more advanced minor league arms out there right now, and he should be getting a chance to make the Diamondbacks opening day rotation. And you can get him right now, ADP 380. I think you're gonna have to take him closer to ADP 325 to make sure you lock him down. But I really think he's worth the upside here. And even if he doesn't make the opening day rotation, give it a month. He's going to be in this rotation one way or another. He's ready for the big leagues. And again, a guy that strikes out a lot of batters and doesn't walk a lot of guys with prospect pedigree and arms in love with him. I don't really need to say anything other than that.
You covered it all besides one key thing. He and I share the same hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. So I'm going to be a fan and pulling for him.
All right, there you go. That's the full sell. That's our 10 really deep sleeper cuts for fantasy baseball in 2023. There's definitely names beyond these 10 that we like and that we're targeting in drafts, but these are really the 10 that we're most confident in. So yeah, that's the episode. Next time we'll be coming to you with our top 10 relievers for fantasy baseball, and then Clay, before you know it, man, 2 weeks until opening day. So finally some real baseball. We can stop deliberating about what we think is going to happen and start, reacting to what actually is happening in real time and real motion. So really excited about that. But anyways, that's the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you next time. Adios.